I'm standing here and I talk, can you hear me okay? Delivering it like that, speaking quite loudly like this, can you hear it? Yeah? Talk a bit more. For breakfast this morning I had cornflakes with milk.
So I can imagine. Yeah, well, yeah, this is mine, yeah. So it's like I can hear you, but because everyone else is speaking. And I've got another one here.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome, and thank you for joining us for what I believe will be a very significant day in British political history. Now today we are delighted to launch Prosper UK, a new political movement that is firmly rooted in the centre-right of British politics. And today is all about taking the battle to the populists. You've read the commentators who say the drift to populism of the left and the right is inevitable across the Western democracies. Our message today is that we thoroughly reject that in the case of Britain. And we do so with very hard evidence. I'm pleased to say you should have a little pack headed More in Common, and that shows you the first bits of research that we have done to support our case. The first graph asks Britons to position themselves on the spectrum of left to right. And if the march of the populists was happening, you'd see a trough, wouldn't you, with the emphasis on the extremes. The opposite is true. The huge majority of Britons still consider themselves of the centre-right. And if you look at the next chart, which is provided as well by More in Common, that renowned pollster group, and indeed Luke Trill, their boss, is here today and will take any brief questions a little later on as well. That second graph, which is from a big survey, shows that of those who consider themselves to be centre or centre-right, over a third of them say that currently no political party represents their views. That's 7 million people. By any measure, that's a very big group of people, a big market, you'd say, in business language, who might describe themselves as politically homeless. And just to size that, remember the last general election, less than 7 million people actually voted Conservative. And then if we turn to what you might describe as attitudes, response to this situation, there's a very big difference in how we respond to that between Prosper UK and the populists. We all acknowledge there are many, many challenges in Britain, whether it be for young people, striving families, that many would say Britain doesn't work as well as it should be for them. But the populist response is, of course, to tear it all down, to divide, to destroy, and have that phrase, broken Britain. Our response is completely different, to acknowledge the difficulties, of course, but then rebuild on the firm foundations of principles, of values, of institutions, of British culture. And our job is to do the hard work about how that rebuilding will occur. And that hard work starts with our ideas around the economy and around business, because without those areas of thriving, we will never address all of the other issues facing us. And today is also about the choice facing this country. And we want to move the choice on from a choice between a failing Labour government and the populists. We are very clear, and we need to be transparent about this from the start. We are all fervent, proud Conservatives, committed Conservatives, and we believe the future has to be with a Conservative government. We're supported, of course, by independent business people, so it's that mix of Conservatives and business that comes together today. But we're saying to our party, as indeed committed Conservatives, it will succeed more if it re-embraces those traditional centre-right roots, because it is when it has been a broad church that it has been the most successful. So Prosper's job is to get out across the country, to listen, to research, to advocate and to galvanise a grassroots movement, and then come forward with proposed ideas and solutions. And my colleagues are going to come to the podium and tell you a lot more about how we're going to go about that. First of all, you will hear from Ruth Davidson, the co-chair of Prosper UK, along with me, and of course, the former leader of the Scottish Conservatives. She'll tell you about what we believe in. And then you will hear from David Gauke, Vice Chair of Prosper UK, and he will cover what I call the tip of the spear, the economy and the business elements of our work. So important. And then you will hear from Amber Rudd, also Vice Chair of Prosper UK and former Cabinet Minister as well. And she will tell you how we're going to go about this, our plan, and she will finish with a call to action. So first of all, Ruth, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Andy. First of all, we've called this group Prosper UK because that's exactly what we want. We want the UK to prosper. We want individuals to be better off, the economy to grow, businesses to thrive, and for this to be a country where people can see a bright future for them and their families. But prosperity is not just about money. It's also about energy and opportunity. It's about feeling that Britain is on the up and that every part of the country can share in that advancement. We know that simply being richer doesn't solve every problem, but better jobs, faster growth, more money in the pockets of our countrymen and women does increase opportunity, it eases decision-making, it widens horizons, and it increases ambition. So as we grow and we go out into the country, speaking to people and businesses, harnessing their energy, listening to their challenges, developing policies that help make a practical and pragmatic difference, we will look at both sides of the balance sheet. Growth, job creation, starting and growing a business, trade and finance, yes, 100% yes. But we will also discuss the investment that makes a greater quality of life. Good housing, safe communities, vibrant high streets and transport links that are fit for purpose, because these help people prosper too. All of the time, we'll be sticking to our values, a belief in individual liberty tempered by social responsibility, in strong borders, the rule of law, sound public finances, and a tax and welfare system that always, 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 always incentivises work. And we're clear, as Andy said, we want Kemi Badenoch to be the next Prime Minister. But we need her to go into the next election armed with a broad policy offering which will shape the national debate and move this country forward. And for people listening at home, we need your help. We need your ideas and your energy. We are aiming to sign up thousands of supporters over the coming weeks and months, and you can join on the Prosper UK website. Our first live event will be in Edinburgh in a few weeks' time, so please do sign up and get involved. Now, Andy and I have practiced the overwhelming majority of our politics far from Westminster. We know that good ideas are not restricted to geography. When, once again, in the overnight news, we see professional politicians seemingly more eager to fight with each other than fix this country's problems, isn't it time that you stepped forward? Because politics is simply too important to be left to the politicians. And with that thought, I'll hand you over to David. David.
Well, thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Andy, and thank you for stepping up and meeting the challenge that the country faces. Now, Andy talked earlier about the tip of the spear that is the economy, and we do want to focus on economic growth. We know that it's only through economic growth that we can raise living standards, that we can provide more opportunities for future generations, that we can fund public services, that we can fund our defence. The economy has to be at the heart of what we are about. Frankly, it is a good political opportunity for the centre-right because we believe we've got the messages and the arguments to win. But also, and more importantly, it's essential to the British people and needs to be at the heart of our politics. That's why we're so focused on this issue. That's why we're so pleased to have the support and guidance of one of the country's leading economists, Andy Haldane, who's here today, former chief economist of the Bank of England. And that's why we are so focused on engaging with business. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Rupert Soames. Rupert, come and join me. Rupert is... chair of the CBI and has a very distinguished business record in his own right. Rupert, thank you for being with us today. Andy was talking earlier about the rise of the populists, and that's the sort of fashionable talk today. It's all about the populists. But from a business perspective, what's wrong with populism?
Because when senior politicians who might end up in government talk arrant nonsense, it scares people. It deters investment. Careless talk costs jobs. And when you see politicians who aspire to high office saying that you can spit in the face of the bond markets, you can go tear up infrastructure agreements of a previous government, when you can take trade deals that have been done by a previous government and just toss them into the wind. Clearly, when you have people saying that they don't like banks, you know, these are populist things, but they deter investment and innovation.
So if we want to move away from that, what do we need more of from our politics? Where are we not delivering as a country as well as we should be?
Well, I think the thing about business is it likes to be apolitical and be able to recognise good on both sides. And certainly the Labour government's efforts on planning reform and regulation reform have been well received. But equally, they've done the Employment Rights Bill, which we think is going to be hugely damaging to government. But I think the thing that businesses notice is that our institutions of government are sclerotic. It goes so slowly. And in the modern world, what businesses want to see is government that can move at the pace of business. And that today is really fast. And that's what I think businesses want to see. Sound policies, sound money, but executed extremely well and with pace.
Rupert, thoroughly agree with that. You've laid down a gauntlet for the country. You've laid down a gauntlet for a Prosper UK. And I know we will want to respond to that challenge. Thank you very much. And now it's my great pleasure to hand over to my former colleague, Ruth.
Thank you. Well, I'm very excited to be here today, and I may be biased because I'm a founder, but I'd like to add how delighted I am that we have such strong leadership with Andy and Ruth, some really great experience in business, in politics and in campaigning. So I've been working in business for a while now, and one of the things that you get a lot of as a former politician is, where is the centre-right? Where are you? And why don't we get more attention for how we can help business? Don't they understand that businesses help to create the growth, the taxes, all the good things that David Gauke referred to? And that feels for businesses a lot of the time that there's a sort of silence on that. Now, for a while I thought it was just, frankly, my friends and family saying that to me, and I thought that maybe I was in my own little bubble. But it turns out that, as you see from the polling in front of you, there are 7 million people who define themselves as centre or centre-right, who we believe share our values and need to hear about this. Because if this country doesn't have government that can really embrace these topics, make it easier to employ people, to create the growth we need, then we are never going to keep pace and be the great country we really want to be. So we're supported in this endeavour by 70 voices in politics, and we are collecting support from people who are in business, who are in local government, from think tanks. And our plan is to work with other businesses and with organisations all around the country. As Ruth said, we're going to be going out of Westminster. We're going to be talking to businesses across the country, cities, outside cities, organisations, chambers, in order to really discover what will work on the ground. I used to work in venture capital, so I have a particular feeling about how government needs to support the risk takers. The people who have the courage, frankly, to go out, to raise the money, sometimes to mortgage their houses, and then have the anxiety of paying the wage bill at the end of the month. We ought to be in a place where we can help those people, not have them feel, as they often do, that government is against them. And as Rupert said, we live in a world now where we have to be much speedier as well as get it right. So those are some of the themes we're going to explore as part of our endeavour of getting across the country, creating this movement and listening to what people have to say. We're going to try and pull it all together in some ideas. Politics, so much of it is about ideas. How can we work to make sure that these ideas are accepted? And one of those things that will work best is if we get some volume. So we really urge people to whom this appeals to join. We're not a political party, we're a movement to try and support the country, to try and raise our game. Join Prosper UK and help us be that force for good. And then I hope together, listening to people across the country, creating these ideas, we can really make a difference. Thank you.
Well, I hope we've covered it succinctly and clearly, and I hope you have found that inspiring and different. It's a crucial word at the end. And now we turn to questions. And it's my job to try to chair the questions. We will share them amongst ourselves. So can you just indicate if you would like to ask a question? And I will ask you just to introduce yourself so that everyone in the room knows who you are. So the first hand I see is the gentleman sitting next to Margot.
Thank you. I'm Tim Sandy from the Daily Telegraph. Amber Wright, two questions. First, Amber Wright, you asked of the centre-right, where are you? Well, are there any sitting MPs here today? No. So the answer is not in Parliament. So is it sort of significant that none of you are in Parliament, or you lost your jobs as mayors, the public seems to have turned against you, your party's turned against you, you're not making the running in politics right now. A second question. You've produced a poll showing that everyone thinks they're a centrist. Everyone always says that. Communists say they're a centrist. Fascists, I think I'm a centrist, and I'm not. Right? Is it the issue that the definition of centre has changed? That, for instance, on immigration, it might once have been centrist to have more open borders, but now when people say they are a centrist, in their head they're thinking, and I want closed borders. So I understand you're going for the centrist vote, but the definition of that word has changed.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask Amber to answer the first question, and then I think I'd like to make a comment on the second one. But Amber, if you want to refer to both.
You may recall there were certain differences in Parliament that created chaos and havoc in the Conservative Party after Brexit. And we're very conscious that we don't want to disturb the serenity that is in the Conservative Party and is in stark difference, perhaps, to the other opposition, to Labour, to the party of government. So we haven't engaged, really, with MPs. We've told a lot of them what we're doing, and there have been meetings with the Leader's Party, with the Leader's office, and Andy may refer to that. But when we are outside Westminster, we want to do something different. And we feel that if we get this right, if we can have the ideas in politics, then we can influence the Conservative Party to, we call it being more centrist, but what we actually want is more focus on business and on growth. We don't want all the focus to be elsewhere. And it's easy to rubbish people, if I may say, and it takes a certain amount of courage to leave your comfortable couch that I have at home and come here and sit here and take your questions. But I think all of us feel very strongly about this, that it's not getting enough airtime, and the only way to do it is to try to come up with some volume and some ideas and put them to the Conservative Party.
I don't know if either David or Ruth want to pick up the second question. I'm very happy to, because this will probably surprise you, how I respond to your second point, because actually I agree with you. And in a sense, that's the very point of this movement. If all we did was go back to what you might characterise as the traditional centrist positions, that won't move the debate forward one bit. What this is all about is having the rigour, the bravery, the originality to say, let's take some of the really difficult issues, immigration, the relationship with Europe, the welfare state, what is the new centre-right position there, and then to put that into what should be a fervent debate about ideas in an opposition party. I think it's fair to say that both in Tony Blair's period in opposition and Margaret Thatcher's period in opposition, one thing that characterised those periods was an intense debate about ideas. It was not replaying the issues of the previous 5-10 years. It was about a new examination, and that's what we want to bring to this current time. So I saw the next hand, the row in front of you, just in front of Margot as well. You'll both have a chance, so I don't mind which order. Carry on.
Ruth from the Financial Times.
Yes?
First of all, what are your positions on UK-EU reset talks?
Yeah?
And secondly, can one of you explain to me, what exactly do you think is the state of the Conservative Party of the UK?
I'm sure we'd all love to have half an hour on that, but we will discipline ourselves. Ruth would love... No. You've asked a very clear question, so I'm going to ask David to take the first one and Ruth to take the second.
So in terms of the UK-EU relationship, where we stand is we're focused on the economy, and we want to do everything we can to remove obstacles to the UK growing properly. We're not here as a single issue organisation and movement that wants to reopen the whole Brexit debate. Within our supporters, there will be different views as to the precise nature of the relationship we have with the European Union. But because we are focused on the economy and because we are essentially pragmatic, we want to look at ways in which we can reduce barriers to trade with our biggest trading partner. That's our instinct, but precisely what we'll do and the position that each and every supporter of this organisation will have will vary, but our instinct is a pragmatic, sensible relationship. But as I say, this isn't an organisation that's trying to reopen the Brexit position.
Certainly not.
That's the read my lips moment.
In terms of your second point, ballot box, so we're in a rebuilding phase. There is a reason, to come back to Tim's question about current sitting MPs, there is a reason that we have not approached and asked sitting MPs to join us. It's because one of, I think, the great successes of Kemi's tenure in leadership so far has been to bring the parliamentary party closer together. It's also because the view of this group is that there are a whole lot of voters out there who feel that the parties in the House of Commons in Westminster aren't speaking directly to them, and we want to have a more direct line. And the reason we want to have that more direct line, and hopefully then over time get them to join us, become members of this organisation, supporters of this organisation, and funnel them into thinking about voting Conservative at the next election, is because we believe in the values of a Conservative party. I think that Kemi Badenoch's performances, particularly since October of last year, have been incredibly strong. I think that the rebuilding work and the intellectual rebuilding that a party has to do in opposition is hard yards, and it can't be done by one person or a small group of people. And the outriders that you have to a party are an essential part of the debate that building from opposition entails. I have done all of my politics north of the border. Building from opposition is something I've had to learn and that I deeply understand. We don't have the luxury of being out of government for 3 or 4 terms. If you look at the difference between what was promised by this Labour government when they were running a campaign and what they have delivered in office, and the disappointment that they have been to the country and to their own voters, we have an absolute necessity to get this Conservative Party back on the pitch, fighting fit as quickly as possible. We're going to do that before the next election. This group, Prosper UK, is just one of the groups that are going to help do that. I'm sure there will be other people that the leadership leans on, other people that will wish to contribute, that will wish to ask questions of the leadership, that will wish to promote ideas to the leadership. But we're going to get back on the pitch, and we're going to give the British electorate a proper choice in the 2029 election, and we are going to help.
Gentleman in the third row.
Rob, from the Critic.
Yeah.
I mean, what you all have in common, in a sense, is that you were really thoroughly beaten and more or less driven out. Not just in the way the Conservative Party lost, but you guys have really lost, and we're driven out of, essentially, more or less driven out of the party in some cases. And does that analysis lead to a way to win next time?
I mean, I would say it's not just about the party to that. And you are, of course, right in many respects. Some of us left with a firm boot on our backs as we exited. And so I'm not in the... I joined the Conservative in the first place, because I believe in those things I spoke about the point of enterprise, dynamism, businesses, and how that lifts the country. And so I feel I still, even though I'm not an MP, I've still got a right to speak out, I hope effectively and powerfully, that this should be at the top of the Conservative Party's agenda. And that's why I'm proud to be part of this.
Maybe?
Look, Rob, I don't want to reopen all of the arguments of 2019 or so, but there clearly was a shift in what the Conservative Party was trying to be and the supporters it was aiming for. And that held together in the circumstances of 2019 when the alternative was Jeremy Corbyn. But I don't think it was a shift that moved the Conservative Party into a sustainable position. And there is no way back for the Conservatives in a situation where it doesn't have a single seat in Oxfordshire. It has only half the seats in Surrey. I look at my own old constituency, and a large part of that, one of the most conservative parts of it back in the day, is now represented by a Liberal Democrat. And if we're looking forward rather than backwards, I think we have to recognise that the only way forward for the centre-right is a coalition of support for the Conservative Party that includes those parts of the country that have drifted away from the Conservatives over the last 7 years. And in the particular circumstances of 2019, some of us were on the wrong side of that argument. But in terms of the circumstances of 2029 and going forward,
that's the point.
The only way back for the Conservatives as the natural party of government is to once again represent those voters and those parts of the country that it has lost in recent years. We believe we have a role in helping the Conservative Party to do that.
I think Rob as well, if I may, very sweetly say, not all of us were. But that's a minor and tertiary point. Secondly, I think the point is when we've won when we put together a coalition of voters. And when we've lost, as we did in difficult circumstances in 2024, we haven't just lost votes to the right, we lost millions of votes to parties to our left as well. These are all voters, and I absolutely understand and agree with, in fact, the strategy of Conservative Central Office to try and re-engage people that have left us to go to reform. But we also have to re-engage people that left us to go either to Labour or Liberal Democrats too. That is the only way that we win again. That is, I think, not a controversial statement. It is self-evident. And we believe, as a group of people, that want to see a broad coalition, that want to see a Conservative government again replace this Labour government that they think is failing on so many measures, but primarily on the growth and economic success of this country. We want to be able to contribute to that debate, and we hope add to that coalition of voters that Kerry will need to become the Prime Minister.
So, as it's an important question, I can't resist just saying something myself, so it's probably poor chairing for us all to give a view, if that's all right, Rob. So, as Ruth said, I was not there in 2019 either, thank goodness, and I did have my own experience in the West Midlands. And yes, I lost at the end, as Leroy Koonsberg said rather brutally yesterday, but I did learn twice that you win through having the broad church, and there's absolutely no question that our coalition in the West Midlands was very broadly based. But perhaps more significant than that personal experience, there is a very big difference between the situation of 2019 and indeed even 24 and now. And this is another thing that the research that we've done has really illuminated. And I have to say it's a very big piece of research, 13,000 people, more detail of that coming. And I think my simple way of describing would be there was almost a desire from the British public in 2019 that simple solutions would provide the answers. What there is now is a recognition amongst the public that that was too simple it didn't work or hasn't worked as people hoped. And actually there's now a real hunger for examining much more thoughtful solutions. So actually the electorate has changed in its questioning, really. And that's what I think now provides the platform for us to come with our response. Yeah. Gentleman there.
Hi, George from PA. Firstly, when do you hope to meet with Ken Baker to get your points across? You, Mr. Street, as a former regional mayor, what do you think about that?
I knew this was coming. There is the fact that someone way to propel a political career because is a fantastic training ground for politicians, and that is a really, really good thing to come out of it for Britain, because if we're in the US, it's very new here, so I will stick to that structural point rather than the person that one. So I have already had a very, I would describe it actually as a very mature. He doesn't necessarily agree with what she thinks, but that's okay. And mature politicians recognise that. So actually, I thought it was an extremely good grounding for us now to. Yes, gentlemen.
On the ECHR, I consider myself centre-right, and I think my views certainly changed on others.
Yeah, lovely. I think I'm going to ask Amber because she has a particular interest in this.
So on the net zero element, we have discussed this. I mean, I mustn't jump the gun because we haven't yet come out with our firm policies, but I think it's fair to say that we agree that this government's going too far with it, and that it's an energy transition. And although we want renewable energy, we want energy to be clean, we also think we need to do it at a pace which is going to make sure that it remains affordable for the public. So we have sort of cautious concerns about it, but we don't think that we have quite yet formed a view. Sorry, Quentin, it wasn't quite as probably as clear as you would like, but we're a little bit cautious about it. What do you think?
Well, I think given my background in Scotland, obviously looking at North Sea oil and gas in terms of the transition that's occurring there and the economic impact of it, it is enormously important we get this right. I don't believe that the pace that and some of the policies that the Labour government has at the moment is correct. I think when you look at international relations and the hotspots in the world, energy security is becoming more and more of an issue. We have this resource. We need to make sure that as we move towards a cleaner, greener world, we still have an energy mix that can support this country, particularly as the world gets a more dangerous and more hostile place.
Yes, just to add on the energy points, we are focused on growth. We do have to bear in mind our competitive position. This is a nuanced and challenging issue. And I think one of the definitions of being a centrist, and I don't believe that this has changed, is to recognise that we live in a world of trade-offs where there are competing objectives and that you have to find your way through all of that. You mentioned, Quentin, the ECHR position. Look, it's a matter of public record what my personal view on this is, and I don't favour leaving the ECHR. But this is an organisation, Prosper UK, that is focused on the economy, and whereas we will set out more detailed proposals and policies on issues like net zero, ECHR is not specifically an economic issue, so that's not the focus of where we are. But look, I'm not going to conceal where I personally stand, but that's not at the heart of what this movement is about.
Thank you. Over on the
Reform is surging ahead in pretty much every
strong borders is on there, along with security and others. You can see everything that we stand for. In terms of your point about reform voters surging ahead, we think they've been polling, we can see that they've been polling very well. I think you will have seen, if you track polling in the way that a lot of people that are in this room do, that has either plateaued or fallen away since turn of the year. I'm not complacent about that, but nor, as a Conservative growing up in Scotland in the 90s and noughties, do I see anything other than polling as a challenge that should be taken on. And I ask you to take the fight to the country with ever greater vigour. If you believe in something, you fight for it. I believe in centre-right values. I believe that businesses in this country are a force for good, and too often they're treated as some form of necessary evil that provides taxation to pay for public services, and that's their only role. It's not. We as an organisation want to get out there and listen to business. We want to improve the country. We want to raise living standards. We want to show a bit of economic growth. We want to get Britain back on the edge. And the sense from both left and right of Labour as a sort of doom loop council of despair and Reform's wanting to blow everything up, we're quite honest, that's not for us. We think there is a fantastic country out there that needs talking up. It needs investment, it needs help, it needs to be listened to, and at the moment it feels that people on the green benches aren't doing any of that, and if we can help in some small way, that is what we're putting our energies towards. And if Express readers can't get on board with those sort of economic sentiments, it's not the Express that we always took as a paper in our house when I was growing up.
Unexpected twist. Right. Any other hands? Let me go to the right, yes.
So Kevin said last week that Conservatives should not take Robert Jeremy's defection as a signal that the party is shifting to the right. How do you square your own party leader's words with what you're trying to do here? And also a question for Rupert, if possible, please.
If he'll take it, yes.
Yeah, he said that populist politics damages investment and innovation. Can you be explicit here? Do you think that a reform government would damage business?
Can I just ask you to introduce yourself as well?
Sam from the Mail.
From the Mail, yeah. Do you mind saying a little bit, Rupert? Yep.
As I said, business needs confidence. It needs to take a long-term view. And I think that some of the views expressed by Reform have been damaging, will be damaging to business, because it's not serious politics. It is the reverse of that. It is not pragmatic. It is not based in the reality of the world. And I think that worries people, the idea that a government might go and tear up arrangements that is laying down things saying, we're putting you on notice that we will not accept, that we will tear up the bidding results for the AR7 review. It is incredibly damaging to large and multinational corporations' view of what a future government of the UK might look like. Does that answer it?
I think it answers it very clearly. Would you mind if I said something in response to your first question? I think you actually asked it wrongly as well, if I may say. Kemi had said the party was not going to shift to the... I would just clarify it for everyone else in the room. So I understand why she said that. I think, so impertinent as to say such a thing, I think I would have said exactly the same if I was her, because I wouldn't wish to have been seen to be buffeted by all these messages off screen. I would want to be absolutely clear about my direction, and she is clear that she is what I would probably describe as a solid right Conservative. But where I am absolutely sure the common ground between her and my view is that the party as a whole will be stronger if it has that breadth of appeal. We can all look at the lessons of history, go back to any successful Conservative leader in the last 100 years. They won when they had a broad appeal. We lost when we went too narrow. And what she would also, I am confident, agree with, is at this stage in opposition, finding practical solutions to the big issues. Housing. The Labour government is abysmally failing on housing. Making work pay. Dealing with the welfare bill. We've got to think about how we answer those. And frankly, what this movement is about is those practical solutions, not the personalities that sit on the green benches. So actually, far from being discouraged by what she said, that sort of steadfast approach actually gave me encouragement for our endeavour. Any last thoughts? Just conscious of time.
So obviously you want to get
Just introduce yourself.
You want to get people involved in your organisation all around the country.
Yes.
And you said you want to be pro-business and represent the centre right. How do you actually plan on getting people to join your movement? Because there's no information about that in the booklet.
Okay. Who would like to take that, Ruth?
So, first of all, as I said, our website so there you can sign up. I mentioned our first one is going to be in Edinburgh. We'll be engaging directly with people and with business organisations. I think the plan for that one is going to be a business roundtable followed by a town hall. So this is about making sure that we go out and physically be in areas of the country and get people who are interested in this, that want to be part of this, along, involved, and sign them up from there. So I think between the 70-odd people you've seen the names announced today, we've got a fair few ideas of how we get people on board, sign up to things, how we make sure that we can attract them, and once we have their details, can keep in contact with them and develop those relationships. And we're confident that we'll be able to do that.
And please spread the word.
So the message, sir, a disciple, you might almost call it. But no, we start recruiting today and we will be out and about. And I hope that you will sign up as a member or as a supporter very quickly. In a sense, that was a perfect last. The practical outcome. The call to action, you might say, the call to go together over the top. So hopefully that's a good conclusion. I'm not seeing anyone else who's desperate. So in which case, can I just bring matters to a close by saying thank you for your participation, interest, and we very much look forward to your support on the journey on the way. Thank you very much indeed. David, we'll need you to stop.
Blind